Welcome back to the Puzzle Minds podcast, where we pretty much talk about those 2 a.m. thoughts.
So we have our guest today, Colin. Thank you for coming and joining us from the Kickback Podcast with Colin and Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah, definitely. Today's episode is brought to you by the letter D for dating during COVID. And so what we wanted to do was kind of see exactly how dating has changed during COVID, before and after, kind of a little comparison. So Colin, what would you say is the most different thing about dating during COVID, I guess?
It's all online for the most part now.
Mm-hmm.
That's become pretty straightforward. Our online apps. I use the big three. I use all Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hinge is a pretty new one, right? Hinge came out during the pandemic, I believe.
I think they put a lot more into marketing when the pandemic came out. They've been around for a little while. I've probably been on that one for about a year.
Okay.
But no, all these apps have doubled their marketing since, and you've noticed I'll notice the user base has increased tenfold.
Yeah, massively. Because I know Hinge is the one that had that commercial that kept saying the app designed to be deleted. It's like,
yes.
Okay, we get it, guys.
Yeah. And really, all I'm seeing is it's just an influx. It's oversaturated. Everybody's online. Everybody's trying to make plans, failing to make plans, and uncomfortable to making plans. It's become a weird line we have to try and toe, because are we doing our part in staying home and not going around, not meeting new people, or are we dating? Are we trying to go out?
It seems like a very strange time in human history, where it's now we're craving the interaction that we took for granted, right? Like you just mentioned, everything's online now. It seems kind of hard to believe that once I guess COVID is, I don't know if it's gonna be conquered or completely eradicated or whatever the word you want to use is, it's gonna be kind of hard to see people just automatically go back to now dating in person. Long gone are the days of I was walking through a library and we bumped shoulders and all of a sudden we fell in love. Like that shit's gone. It's like I clicked on her page and she was dope.
Yeah. It's a lot of that. And I've gone on a couple dates since COVID has started. But it's near impossible to make plans, because you feel like you're not doing the right thing when you do make plans with a stranger. That's what they're telling us not to do. But
you know what I
mean?
Good point.
So where do you find this line, and are you going out? I mean, I'm on the fence still about, do I want to go to the bar? Do I want to take you out to a restaurant?
Yeah. So when you finally meet up with this person, do you kind of follow like the social distancing in terms of like I assume no one really does this, but they're kind of like 6 feet apart, or they're kind of side by side, just kind of trying to get that intimacy kind of going, if that makes sense.
I know what you mean. It's it really depends on the person. I mean, being on the more relaxed side of things, because I work in the service industry. I'm at a restaurant at half capacity. I'm interacting with people. It's just I'm on the front lines. I guess that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not super scared of going in public.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got to take somebody else's lead in this. There's a lot of people that don't want to leave the house. They want to see a test from you. I've had multiple people ask me to show them a COVID test before we have a date.
Yeah. So we were actually talking about this I think a few days ago, and we were saying that like COVID testing is kind of like the new STD test. People are always wanting to know, like, hey, do you are you negative of COVID? And I don't know if it's just maybe like the negative connotation that we have, but I guess I should ask you, do you have, like, how do you feel when someone asks you, or, can you give me a COVID test? Do you kind of,
I mean, I don't have a test. I don't have the time for a test.
Yeah.
I usually take that as a sign that even if I agree that that's something I should be doing, you and I just clearly aren't on the same page mentally, because I'm working 60 hours a week. I don't have the time to go do the test. And honestly, I've likely come in contact with it already.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting that you say that, because I see like you basically it's almost like a deal breaker more or less if somebody's like, well, even for, more or less me to give you a chance, I need you to have this test. So they're not even, it seems like people nowadays may not be even focused on the connection that you potentially could have with the individual. They're more like, before I even entertain the idea of a connection, get tested. And that seems to, it's surprising that, I guess more people aren't taking it as a negative thing, because it seems like what John was saying before, even the whole STD conversation, is we don't ask people, hey, when's the last time you got an STD check? We just assume everybody is, I guess,
regularly
clean.
getting tested.
Right, is doing your own thing.
Why don't you know if we assume people are getting regularly tested, right? Because we just assume that people just aren't dirty, right? We just assume that you just don't have it. I don't think people assume that like every person they are dating are regularly tested. But for COVID, I wonder if COVID is going to end up becoming like that with like we handle STDs, where we're going to eventually get to a point where we just hope that somebody does. We hope somebody doesn't have chlamydia. We hope somebody doesn't have herpes. We hope you don't have COVID, right?
And if the first question that somebody asks you when you ask them if they want to go out, if you've been tested for chlamydia, you're not going to respond very great.
Exactly. You're not going to be like, you're going to assume that's an excuse almost for them to get out of the interaction.
Right. And I'm not opposed to it by all means. I mean, we all should be doing what we can to avoid spreading the virus and everything else. So I don't take offense to it if somebody asks. It just shows me that we're clearly at two different points in our time with COVID.
Mm-hmm. So I had a question. So were you previously dating before COVID?
Yeah. I've been in and out of relationships. I've been using these online platforms for a long time now.
Okay. So my question is, do you see a lot more people on it in terms of, because since everyone is at home, I guess they're on their phones, and so they're not able to meet more people. Do you see like it's easier to match with people?
Yeah, I've definitely found that matches are coming in a lot faster. People are a lot more responsive, but at the same time, they're twice as hesitant as before. So it's really
it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
it
quite
is.
literally. Yeah,
It very much is, because as a young male just outside of a college town area, I only get 1 or 2 matches a day. It's a lot of competition around here.
A day? Oh, damn! I feel like that's a lot. I don't know.
Well, it's a concentrated college town.
Okay.
So yeah, 1 or 2 a day is, especially with twice as many people on. That's average, but it's harder to make plans. It's a lot harder to do anything with it.
I got you.
So would you say, since you've been on these apps for quite some time, would you say that people prior to COVID, were they looking more for hookups than dating, or is it still more or less the same now versus now? Where are people looking? Do you find people looking more for intimacy or just still sexual connections, or is it still kind of the same?
That's one of those where let me take a quick drink and I'll get into that.
It sounds like it's really, really great tea that we're about to indulge in.
Yeah. No, it's I think everybody's locked at home right now. They're getting less sexual interaction than ever before. And so everybody is pent up. Everybody is in a pent up rage, and there's no denying. But they also are twice as scared of just jumping into bed with a stranger more than ever. And it's honestly, it's funny how many messages you'll see at 2:00 in the morning, how more responsive people are at that time, people throwing their Snapchats around, getting a lot of OnlyFans links.
Oh, wow. Hey, look, you got to promote somehow.
Right, you got to promote. And but at the same time, they're really, as soon as it wears off tenfold.
Yeah.
So it's twice. So the horniness wears off essentially twice as fast now, because
you said then post nut clarity sets in.
Oh damn.
True. Yeah, that post nut clarity is real deal. About to drive 15 miles to go get some butt, and then bust that nut and be like, why in the hell am I going to risk my life for some ass cheeks?
Exactly. So they're not leaving the house. We'll say they'll take matters into their own hands and then quickly, repent.
Quite literally put it in your own hands.
Yeah, exactly. So the ones that I do find that I'm connecting with, at least, are ones that are looking for more consistency, and that's almost half because they don't want to be interacting with more people than they have to be.
True.
Yeah. I've been on a couple dates, and they've turned into 3 or 4 dates in the past 6 or 7 months, and I find that it's it's almost more forced than before because they
Mm.
don't want to go back out there and start looking again.
Oh,
You
it's
know?
kind of like an investment. They're just like, hey, like, I've put this much time into it. I need to make this work because I don't want to have to start from square one, I guess.
Exactly. And it's like I already found one that clearly doesn't have COVID. Do I really want to risk it again?
Mm.
Everything else is terrible, but he or she
Right.
doesn't have COVID.
They're
So
like, well,
let's keep this thing going.
Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon,
And
and he doesn't
everything.
have COVID.
He doesn't have COVID, but he does have AIDS. So we have to figure this thing out.
Right. Right. They don't even ask about that.
Exactly.
I was like, I got Hep C, and she was like, but you're COVID negative. Okay, cool.
So I guess my next question is, do you find that do you think that basically people now, since they're pretty much starved from intimacy and sexual interactions, that I guess now the pool are people, what is it done for the quality of stock that you find? I'm sorry that it sounds like I'm talking about human beings like they're animals, but seems like basically I wonder, are people's standards going up since we can't go and do the things that we used to do, or I guess we took for granted, or would you say people's standards have maybe possibly gone down because now it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what the post-COVID world is going to look like. None of us do, right?
No, none of us
So-
do, and there's no way that it looks the same as it did before. It's just the fact of the matter now. I think it's hard to say whether standards are going up and down because there is just a crazy influx of people. So maybe I'm dealing with women that are more lenient, but I'm definitely getting chances with ones that I wouldn't be seeing a chance with about 7-8 months ago.
Oh, see, there we go. Though, so it's like COVID is doing some work for the team right now.
Double-edged swords. It's a double-edged sword. The hardest part I'm finding now that COVID really changed is nobody wants to go to restaurants. I have to both make them comfortable that I don't have COVID and try and finesse a dinner at home because that seems like the safer option of everything.
Oh, that's interesting because that used to be the anxiety that most people had towards the end of the date, right? How am I going to non-creepily invite her back to my apartment for a nightcap or Netflix and chill, or like a platonic hand job? Who knows, right?
Right.
but it's one of those things where I wonder now, since the interesting thing that you said now, it's like the safest environments tend to be people's households, right? Because if you've already shown her that, hey, you're COVID free, why would you both want to go into an environment where you both could potentially catch it? So now it seems like there's less of a stigma. Like, why don't you come over? Maybe we have dinner together. Why don't we, I don't know, literally take a walk in the park, something of that sort, right?
Yeah, the stigma is very much gone away about going to somebody's house for a first date because that was unheard of 7-8 months ago.
Yeah.
Who's coming over to a stranger's home while they cook dinner for the first time to meet them? But now that's the safest place.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how many COVID babies are going to be born? Like, you have the boomer generation. Imagine how many, like, it's going to be the COVID generation where, like, these kids fully exist because their parents had nothing else to do but fuck all day.
So it's actually around that time, because 9 months from when it started was in March. So we should be seeing these babies coming out.
Started
for December, yeah, sometime next month.
That first cross will come out.
Especially now, we're at a second peak of COVID, and it's getting cold out.
Yeah.
It's going to be back to back to back.
What do they call it during the wintertime? There's a term where you basically wipe somebody up for the winter. What is it
cuffing
called?
season?
Cuffing season, exactly. Cuffing season. You have cuffing and COVID season. That double CC season.
The double CC.
The double CC.
The double
cuffing
Cs,
COVID
man.
season.
People are probably getting married at this point. We're like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to meet anyone other than you in this, pretty much like post-apocalyptic world. You want to just make this like official? How many people do you think have that conversation now?
It's hard to say. I've seen a lot of relationships go by the wayside just as quickly as others are coming together.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
some people might realize they don't like each other as much.
Yeah, I guess because of having everyone, there are some people, I guess, that work from home, both people in the relationship, and so they're spending a lot more time than they normally would. I wouldn't say 24/7, but a very close, a close amount as opposed to yeah, because normally I guess people would be out of the house for 8 hours with whoever is working like that's not staying at home, I guess. Right. But if you're in the house constantly and you're interacting, you're seeing these things that you've never even seen your significant other do before, just like, damn, like that's really annoying. Like, why do you do that? You never noticed it because you'll spend a little bit of time, and then after that you'll have to go to bed because it's that the time limit is not really as constrained.
Right. or you work 9 to 5 and then you come home and you see them.
Yeah.
So it's
just I guess it's kind of like exposing a side that you never really saw. I mean, obviously there's two sides to this coin in the sense of, there are some people that now, love their partner even more because they get to spend more time with them. Like, with everything, there's always two sides. But that's actually a really good point. Yeah, that relationships are breaking and falling just as fast.
Overexposure to anything could be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't spend that much time with my close family.
Yeah, I got you.
Seems like it can potentially either expose flaws in a relationship that otherwise wouldn't have been seen, or like you said, strengthen. Some people, maybe they needed to work on certain things, and it kind of shows at the end of the day what people are all about. Because sometimes we feel as if that, like, most of the time that usually is reserved for marriage, right? If you're dating somebody, you typically, you can only go, I guess, quote unquote, only go so far of the development of your relationship because you're not around each other so much. If you're a person that doesn't live with their significant other. But now, let's say, for example, a lot of these couples are quarantining together because, if you're either separated, or because I know some couples that are either separated where they can't actually be together, so they may have not actually physically seen each other in weeks or months, and then some couples that were forced to actually be together because they didn't want to deal with the separation, so they're around each other all the time.
Right. Relationships with distance turn into long distance where they didn't, where they weren't before, and relationships where they're in the same home are now almost overexposed, and it's working against. If you ask me, it's working against relationships twice as hard.
I think
at least existing ones as opposed to new ones.
Yeah, it's like John said, it's either strengthening or weakening. So it's potentially exposing holes, and maybe it's pretty much actually a natural way of separating people that should not even be together, and maybe strengthening some people that realizing, like, you know what, I thought I just loved kind of like my significant other. I realized I actually love the hell out of this person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to kind of go back on the notion that you were saying that, some people are trying to make, like, after a few days, they kind of want to make this work, like they're willing to do it. So I actually had a question, because do you see yourself getting into, like, deeper conversations before you even meet them? Because, when you first meet someone, you're kind of in that flirting stage. You don't really have these deep conversations. You just like these witty, like talk that you like.
It's banter. Yeah.
Banter. Yeah, that's the word I want to use. Yeah. But I wonder if you're seeing more, like, deep conversations before you even meet them, just because, some people may be hesitant to go out. And so you kind of just have these quote, like, video dates, I guess.
Right.
You meet him and you kind of see him, like, on Skype or Zoom, whatever the hell you use. And so, you have these kind of, like, dates. And so, maybe you have these conversations, and then before you even get to meet them actually in person, is that something that you see happening, I guess?
It's not something that I've experienced myself. I've, like I said, I'm working 60 some hours a week. I'm interacting with people all day, every day. I work both retail and in the service industry. So I'm not seeing that. The dates that I'm getting, or the ones that I'm having, are people coming over for dinner, and it's weird. You're still trying to almost pretend we're at a bar or we're somewhere in public. You're still trying to do the banter and do the small talk, and I've always got to put something on TV, and then I'll turn the radio on, almost overstimulate the whole room just so it seems more comfortable.
You might need to invest in some, like, cardboard cutouts, just make it kind of seem like it's like a
right. I'll sit them on the couch and be like, oh, that's Tom, and then
yeah, the gang is all here, man. Yeah, you gotta say it like that.
So do you find yourself having more pressure since you have essentially people coming over to your house on, like, the first or second dates, as opposed to maybe previously?
Oh, very much so. It's absolutely nerve-wracking. Yeah, because even like, before COVID, somebody coming to your house, you'd clean the whole place up.
That's a big deal. Yeah. There's a quote that says, you want to see how fast a man is. See how fast a man cleans his house when he thinks he's gonna get some ass.
That's how quick he moves.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, so it's like you got to work twice as hard, because you got to not only make a stranger, like make a girl feel comfortable coming into your house for the first time, but at the same time, like, this is the first time you're meeting them, so you got to you got to double that.
Yeah, it seems like there's more pressure on the initial. It seems like things have flipped, right? Where essentially it's holding the pre-COVID was holding the charm for as long as possible, right? So essentially, there's less pressure initially because you're still trying to get to know each other. Everyone is feeling each other out, less pressure. But now, and then the end of it would be like she finally came over. That was the big pressure moment, right? That was
Right.
the
That was the release.
like do or die time. Let's don't mess this up. I've been putting in all this work. Now it's like, let's start off with that. Let's go ahead and start off with all this anxiety initially.
Exactly.
And then maybe, and then it goes back, and then it's actually working backwards now, where initially like you're anxious, and then it gets more and more relaxed.
Yeah,
so
I never thought about that.
So do you feel, which one would you prefer thus, I guess, so far since you've experienced both sides, which one do you think has more benefits, the pros and cons of both?
You know, that's a good point. I never thought about that, because before, you're right, it was once you made it through the date and they were coming home, you could relax.
Mm-hmm.
You could, let out that breath. And now,
and that fart too.
Yeah, that fart. Need to step out back real quick. Yeah. No, I didn't even think about that. It's I don't know. I've had a couple not go great, which is to be expected. Well, I mean, it's nothing crazy. They come over for dinner, they sit on the other chair and we, do awkward small talk and watch a stand-up special I pretend to not have seen before.
You gotta time these laughs right.
Right. Try not to mouth the jokes along with them, with Bert.
Oh, that's interesting. It also seems like it presents a different level of difficulty now, where it's, if it doesn't go well before, it's at a restaurant, my friend's in trouble, I got to disappear, go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
She can't go to your bathroom and then leave your house. Like,
nope.
You see it. You see her.
So I imagine there's a lot of pressure on their end as well.
Yeah.
Because at what point do they make their exit?
Exactly. At what point, if they're not having a good time 20 minutes in, what do you do now? Before, it seems like people are probably going to have to get more creative. I'm sure the old, if like someone called me after 30 minutes, you haven't heard from me, call me in 30 minutes and I have to pretend like you're on fire and I have to go save you or something.
Exactly.
But it seems like now people might be forced to, I guess, be more forefront of their intentions. Maybe that's the thing now. Where
very much so. It's all become so much more straightforward than it was before, because you're not meeting in public and tiptoeing around everything. And I've put a lot of thought into it, because this is, I can't go to the bar anymore. I can't just buy you a drink. I have to try and create this situation where I will leave the front door open so that they can kind of come in at their pace. I'm not, meeting you at the door, all that kind of stuff. It's trying to make the setting as comfortable for them as possible, which also means giving them the out when they, when you feel like there might need to be one.
True.
So
sorry, go ahead, John.
Okay. So I was going to say, so when when you're meeting, or you meet these people first time on Hinge or whatever app that you use, how long before you are able to meet them in person? Like, do you have to kind of not fluff them up, but make them more comfortable? Like, how long does it take for you to make them comfortable enough for them to finally get them over to the point where you can make dinner for them?
It depends on the person. See, me, I'm very busy, so I usually put it on the table from the beginning. I'm like, listen, this is the way that I do things. It's not me trying to overstep or understep. I'm telling you that I'm going to cook dinner for myself or for both of us. This night I'm off, at some point within the next couple of weeks, if you'd like to join me, I'd be fine with that. And, I like to open with those things just to make it clear, because we are in a COVID time. I'm not going to play the dinner. I don't have a park to walk in.
Yeah. Yeah, we call that the Aeon method, the all or nothing. That's that big dick energy where you're just like, look, exactly. I'm not trying to waste time.
That's really
what I'm going to do.
That's that Don Draper energy. You're telling them look, I don't care what you're doing, but I'm telling you what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's always been my approach. Is even when I was going out to dinner, though, because I've been a bartender for 6 years. On my day off, I take myself out to dinner where I don't have to make a drink. I don't have to make dinner. I don't have to do anything. So I would tell them, I'm taking myself out to dinner on Friday night. If you'd like to join me, I'd be glad to have company. But regardless, it's my night off and I'm going to go out to dinner. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off of them. It's not me, saying, let me take you out to dinner. Yeah. Let's roll out the red carpet. It's much more relaxing. It's going to be a nice place, but I'm going there anyway. So
damn, you might have found a hack on how to ease in to make people comfortable. You just say, hey, look, I'm going to do this. You're more than likely, or you're more than welcome to come join me.
Right. And it's, you got to phrase it a little differently. Yeah. I try and say, it would be nice if you joined me. I would like to have you join me.
Yeah.
I'd like to take the pressure off, as in you're ruining my night if you don't come. You know what I mean?
This is going to suck if you don't show up.
Right. Dinner would be great, but if not, I'll just go home and masturbate.
You just ruined my salmon.
And that's the setting I've been trying to make when I have them over to the house. I keep the door open. I keep the windows open. I keep the radio on in the living room. I've usually already got dinner started.
You give them all the exits.
Give them all the exits and keep your hands above your waist. Right. Give them all the exits. Keep your hands in sight at any given time.
So it seems like things have switched almost. Like now, dinner might be the high pressure situation, because if you're inviting women, women or men, it's 2020. Who knows what people are into over at the apartment, right? It seems like that used to be the high pressure situation, because if you knew that, I guess, let's, not to sound, misogynistic, but I presume most men assume that if you get her back to your apartment, the likelihood of things transpiring sexually drastically goes up, right?
Right.
So now that if you're starting off that way, I wonder now, where is that? What's going to be the equivalent of that now? Like, well, she's already been to your place. Is it now inviting her to the restaurant? Like you said, you invite her out to eat, on whatever night you're
backwards.
Off. Oh, shit. And then you ask her to come back again. So after you have the outing, then you come back. Is that how you know something's going to transpire, or what's going to be the thing now? Like that.
Well, now you just don't know when it's going to happen, because I've, before COVID, had first dates go really well, and you take them home. But when they, once they enter the threshold of the house, you're like, oh, this is it. We made it.
Yeah, like you're there.
Now they're already there. So where do I find the trigger? You know what I mean? Where's the line that we crossed that was, the doorway?
Yeah, that's now.
What if that's your bedroom?
But how do you? I'm too old to show girls posters on my wall.
Look at this Buzz Lightyear poster. It's so dope.
I got a sick Naruto poster in the closet.
Oh shit! Yeah, man. Yo, shout out Naruto. Yo, Weeb Gang. We about that. Yeah, that's that's really interesting, because I didn't even think about that when you mentioned that, because is there an equivalent to like that doorstep moment?
Yeah, when do you pull the trigger now? Because if your date is starting off at your house, do you just go meet her at the door? You hook up on the doorstep, and then you come in?
Is it her place, or the other person's place? Maybe, is that what it is?
Honestly, I haven't found the trigger yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've had successful shots, but those were definitely throwing darts.
You had a few flesh wounds, I guess. Hit him a couple times, bop, but no kill shot. So I guess that's what we need to figure out now. What is going to be the balls to the wall moment at this point? Well, if we already are having the person over, there's no creepy or showing your intentions way to be like, why don't we just go hang out in my bedroom for no absolute reason?
Right.
There's no real way to ask. Typically,
right. You got to invite her across the threshold like she's a vampire or some shit.
Exactly. Enter my domain, please. Please.
Permission. Right.
So
so I had a question. So when you're using these apps, have you had any difficulties in terms of being catfished?
No, I really haven't. But
just close the door.
Or I guess catfish in the terms of you have these girls use okay, I don't want to say girls. Let's just say people who use the apps use filters to you know how a lot of people use filters.
Yes.
To kind of enhance their filters. Do you experience that a lot, or they kind of they are what they seem they are?
Well, with COVID, especially since everybody is so hesitant, by the time they're coming over, I've usually seen they've added me on Snapchat, things like that. I do all of that to make them comfortable. I don't want it to sound like I send them a message on the first night and say, hey, come over for dinner. because it is like a week or two of conversation, whatever makes them more comfortable. I know that I'm the lax one in this whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
So whatever makes them comfortable, but usually by the time that they've come over, I've seen, they've sent Snapchats, I've seen them on Instagram, all that stuff. I haven't had any issues with that. Frankly, I saw more of that prior to COVID.
So actually that's a really good question. Before COVID, did you just give your number out right after right after you matched on the dating apps, versus now do you kind of give them like your Snapchat or your Instagram as opposed to like giving your number? Like I guess my question is, what did you do beforehand after you matched with them? Did you give them your phone number or
now?
Yeah.
No, I really didn't give them anything prior, unless, God forbid, we speak on Tinder for 2 or 3 weeks, but that was rare,
Yeah.
At the time, but I'm in a bar concentrated area, so normally it was easy to get on Tinder and say, hey, I'll meet you at so and so bar. There's 6 or 7 popular bars in the area that somebody of our age range would be going to, so it was easier to just say, hey, maybe I'll see you there. And then if they look like their pictures, then you usually find them there.
It's like, hey, I'll be wearing a red cap today and a blue shirt. Make sure you find me.
Right. And you get on a table and play, where the fuck is Waldo?
I got you. Well, thank you for coming on and, sharing your experience. Cause like I said, I'm married, and so I don't really have any experience in dating right now. And so it's just, to me, it was really fascinating and how things have changed during dating during COVID. So thank you for bringing light to that.
This is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Seems like we have to figure out, I guess on our next episode, we're going to have to figure out what is the trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When to pull the trigger in 2020 or 2021, I guess.
When to pull the trigger. Absolutely, guys.
Or what it is too.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Let the people know where they can find you, because in the beginning we mentioned that you had a podcast, so let them know like what the name is and where they can find you, all that.
So I've got a podcast with a friend of mine named Kyle. We do the Kickback with Colin and Kyle. It's currently on Spotify, YouTube, and it should be up on Apple within the next week or two. Cool. Check us out. It's mostly just banter and current events with quite a bit of alcohol conversations dribbled in there.
I got you.
I will. We also are going to be touching on things like anime in the coming weeks. Very big situation going on over here.
Are you excited for Attack on Titan next week?
I am, but right now I'm really just excited for Jujutsu Kaisen every Friday.
Oh, yes. Attaboy. Yeah.
Yes.
That show's been killing. That's a whole new episode.
That's a conversation that we can have off the air, because I don't want to bore too many people. We can do that one
another time. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you like this podcast, smash that button, that follow button, like button, wherever you find us. Follow us on our social media platforms. Instagram is Puzzled Minds Podcast, and Twitter is Puzzled Minds Pod. Last but not least, thank you, Official Block of the Week, for the weekly episode cover arts. Other than that, everyone stay puzzled.
Peace.